I was once a banker who walked the streets of the Garden District in New Orleans, entranced by the musicians and mansions that would be the backdrop and soundtrack to my life. Making my way down the pristine architecture-laden roads of Britannia, St. Charles, Jackson Avenue, I would daydream my journey walking in uptown, from the streetcars to the amazing restaurants, and everything seemed dream and hopeful. Tonight in the Wicked Webs We Weave, I invite you to take that walk with me once again on a warm autumn day. I'll be your guide, Ryan McKern, and let us recall the tales of the LGD historic staple in New Orleans, Louisiana's haunted history. When the Garden District was its own town of Lafayette, Jackson Avenue was the grand main street, and at 1410 Jackson, the grandest occupant of that street, stands the Buckner Mansion. Henry Sullivan Buckner owned plantations, warehouses, and ships. All his money made his other money more. He had the 12 bedrooms, 20,000 square foot palace, constructed in 1856. The house features double-decker Greek Revival columns, iconic on the bottom level, Corinthian at the top. The idea is that the eye moves up. The house gets more and more majestic. In addition to the intimidating face of the house, walking around to the back reveals a long extension of 2-story slave quarters. Buckner passed in 1895, and the family finally sold the property in 1923. At this time, the slave quarters became dorm rooms, and the place became Soul Business College. The school, started by George Soul, had been downtown since before the Civil War. Soul bought typing shorthand, secretarial services, and bookkeeping. Two of its notable alumni are Mayor Robert Maestri and the singing governor, Jimmy Davis. Davis, who wrote the song "You Are My Sunshine." Sunshine was named after his horse and became the Louisiana anthem. There is a bit of poetry and the still tiles still at the front gate. From education as the leading cause, public character its color draws. The school closed its doors in 1983. Today, the house is privately owned and well cared for. It has become a popular venue for film and television shows. The estate, the Toni Collette, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, and a ton more. But its actual popularity as a must-get photo was when it appeared in the 3rd season of American Horror Story Coven. It was Miss Robichaud's Academy for Exceptional Young Ladies, a boarding school for young witches, where they are taught how to use their powers. One memorable scene has Stevie Nicks running down the marble stairs from the front door through the stunning columns. Every day you can watch carloads of goth folks unloading to get portrait before the storied building. Brought to you by UniqueNova.com. But first, like any major trip and adventure, we will need some supplies. Let's first we stop at Lucky's on St. Charles Avenue for a cold Abita beer to go. Or Abita root beer, whatever is your poison. Back to the walk. Follow me on an interesting little detour before our main stop. The final destination awaits, but until then, let's talk a little bit about the Colonel Short Villa in New Orleans. Colonel Short Villa is located on 4th Street in the Garden District of New Orleans, Louisiana. It sits on the land that once belonged to Lividau's plantation. In 1832, the land was subdivided and sold into smaller units. Colonel Robert H. Short had his side hall mansion constructed in 1859, designed by architect Henry Howard in the Italianate style. During the Civil War, the house was seized by the federal troops in the city. In March of 1864, the villa was used as an executive mansion for Michael Hahn, the federal governor of Louisiana. Major General Nathaniel P. Banks, U.S. Commander, Department of the Gulf, then occupied the home for the remainder of the war, turning it over to the Colonel Short again in August of 1865. Colonel Short lived there until his death in 1890. The distinctive cast iron cornstalk fence which surrounds the property was supplied by Philadelphia's Wood and Muntenberger. From its time in the 1800s, in the times of slavery, through present day, in the Hollywood touch of witchcraft, This historic 20,000 square foot regal mansion, adorning the northwest corner of Coliseum Street and Jackson Avenue, the grandiose Buckner Mansion has continued to be a sought-after tour destination and has a touch of Hollywood steeped in its rich history, topped off by stories that only the dead could retell. The visually stunning piece of Louisiana history stands tall over the spectators who gaze upon its over 150-year history. The private estate may be off limits to the public, but the current owners aren't the only ones who preside over the property. While the antiquated Grecian architectural design links the Buckner Mansion to its 20th century roots, there's a fixture residing within the walls of the historic building, someone who's more familiar with the property's history than even the most versed historian. Buckner Mansion's spectral resident has a certain claim to the property, which leaves one to wonder if they have any qualms and their home landing a spot on television. Through the floor to the ceiling windows, the apparition waits, eyeing up every passerby, there to meet Miss Robinshaw's Academy for Exceptional Young Ladies. Haunted establishments gain forms all the time. Throughout fame, however, Buckner Mansion's time in the spotlight is less about its local apparition and more about the occasional appearance of Season 3 of American Horror Story. While interior shots of the Academy were all around the stages, Buckner Mansion stole the spotlight whenever the brilliant exterior and iron gates were in the frame. The name Henry S. Buckner won't mean much to anyone outside of New Orleans. However, there was a time when the Buckner name symbolized affluence and wealth. Rewinding the clock back, more than 150 years sees Buckner paired with Frederick Stanton, working together as partners. Both made their money off cotton and the backs of others. But their friendship didn't last. Sometime before 1856, when Buckner commissioned the construction of the New Orleans Manor, the two had a falling out. At the time, Stanton was the proud owner of the Mississippi Antebellum Mansion, a 5-story testament to the value of cotton. Stanton Hall was unmistakably in the city of Natchez, taking up one full block. Buckner Mansion sought to have the home outshine the Stantons, and in many ways it did. For almost 70 years, the Buckner name was tied directly to the home and its 3 bedrooms, 3 ballrooms, and by the 1920s, Henry and his wife, Catherine, had passed, and the home belonged solely to their daughter, Laura, and her husband, at least on paper. There were only 2 owners. It's difficult to deny a spirit's claim to the property they haunt, especially someone whose life has tied to the property before their passing. Miss Josephine may not have been on any deed. She may not have been on any deed, but as the mansion's eternal resident, it belongs just as much to her as it does to any warm-bodied resident. Buckner Mansion in New Orleans. As a cotton kingpin in the 20th century, Henry Buckner built his business with the unpaid labor of others. When he and his family finally moved into the mansion, it was believed that the one of their slaves, Miss Josephine, joined them. Even after the Civil War, when Miss Josephine was free to live her own life, she remained with the Buckners. She had grown close to the family and knew little of how to live her life on her own. So she remained in the mansion, serving as the governess and midwife, even after the mansion was sold in 1923 to George Soleil, who converted it into a school for business. Miss Josephine stayed within the extravagant halls of the mansion, her apparition watching over the very home she once helped care for. There's no record of Miss Josephine's death and existence in Buckner Mansion, but many who have entered the expansive building before being sold to a private owner spoke of hearing her and the sound of weeping, sweeping. Others claimed to have spotted Miss Josephine around the home as if she continued caring for it long after the last Buckner left. Though the spirit of Miss Josephine and the Soul Business College drew attention to the mansion, it wasn't until 2013 that a school of witches turned it into a horror phenomenon, and it earned global fame. Through its rich and haunted history, and just one of the beautiful mansions in the Lower Garden District, Buckner Mansion is stately edition, with its interesting story of its own. While the Buckner Mansion is a private residence and such unavailable to tour, it is still worth walking past. From a former slave who remains attached to the home to the connection of American Horror Story Coven, the Buckner Mansion is a worthy stop should you find yourself in the Lower Garden District. Beyond the ghosts and witches of the Big Easy, the city is brimming with ghost stories to tell. I hope you join me next time as we explore more on the Wicked Webs Weave podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Ryan McKern. Thank you so much for listening. And until we meet again, my friends, au revoir.